Hey, it's Dr. Bradford here. I wanted to go through your homework on Chapter 3, Quantitative Research. I just glanced over the homework assignments, but I just wanted you to be clear on how to look at a research article. If you haven't really looked at many research articles, I know many of you took Com Theory with me, but specifically the difference between quantitative and qualitative research articles, qualitative research articles are a little bit more liberal in terms of the format. When we go through, I think it's chapter 18, I'm going to really describe those in detail to help you with your proposals. But one thing I want you to really be clear about for quantitative, because we're going to be going through this the next couple of weeks, is really where to look for everything. The book does a really nice job of describing things like hypotheses, the differences between hypotheses and research questions, when a research question is necessary. For the most part, hypotheses are necessary in quantitative research. So what I did was I downloaded some of your articles, and these are some of the things that I want you to really pay attention to. So, because in a couple of weeks, I guess next week, you're going to be looking at an experiment. So I want you to make sure that you're getting exactly what you're looking for. All of the research articles will have this abstract here, and you can get a general idea of what this paper is about. So this is nice because it gives you a little introduction, but then look at that theoretical background. Now, now it's really not that clear here in this study what the theoretical background is, but it's just nice that lots of times quantitative research articles will give you this. So they will set up the foundation of the study. So you should always look at the purpose, and lots of times that's going to be in the end of your introduction. The study aims to assess the potential prospect and limitation of digital media's role for democratization of knowledge and participation. It's a lot of heavy words. So, and the students who did turn in their homework so far, they did a nice job with the APA style. So the purpose is usually going to be at the end of the introduction. So keep that in mind for your research proposals. And then the theory is usually next. This is what you call part of your literature review. They set up a theoretical background. And then within the literature review, you'll typically have a hypothesis. Okay? This actually, knowledge gap is also a type of theory. So as you can see, it's not as easy on this article. This is a research question right there. Do the uses of blogs, Twitter, Facebook have different level of relationship with political knowledge? Okay, so in research questions, you really don't have you're really not looking for a directional. Research questions are typically non-directional because they're just asking. We really don't know what's going on here. All right, I'll go into the non-directional and directional in a minute when we go to another article. Okay, you always know that if you have a hypothesis, the null hypothesis is always going to be that there is no relationship or there are no differences. So it's just rewriting it as there's no differences. Now the operationalization, this is really important when we get into measurement. The operationalizations, this is when you go down to the method. Okay, so you skip down to the method. Here, right there, measurement. This study placed political knowledge into two categories, civic. Oh, this will be good for one of my students' honors thesis. So it tells you exactly how they measured. They used open-ended questions. For political participation, they shows you how they measured political participation, and they show you how they measured blog use, Twitter use, Facebook use, education. Look at all the things that they measured in this study. It's a lot. Okay. So this was a pretty good example of what you need to be looking for in a research article for these homework assignments. Let me just skip through to, I think this is Summers. Again, this one was a little bit more difficult. So this is about forensics. So the study represents an attempt to bridge the knowledge base in these critical areas. So you'll find your purpose here, and they call it something different. This is called related literature. So they go into a literature review, explain really what has been researched before. And as you can see, again, research questions here have been set apart, and that's what I want you to do in your proposal. Set apart your research questions or hypotheses. Okay? So again, they're using first person, which makes me crazy. So they're showing you how they're measuring all their different variables. Okay? That's where you'll find, and that's where your operationalization is. All right? This next one, this was, I think this was Samantha's. Again, this is your abstract here. Your introduction was very, very quick. Actually, it looks like the introduction is a little too quick because it doesn't really specify the purpose of the study. So this was a little bit difficult because there's really no theoretical background. Okay? And they modeled theirs a little bit differently than what a typical quantitative research, I guess it's because this comes from education. So consider that. Try to keep your research articles coming from communication and mass communication complete or mass media complete. That way you know you're getting communication related articles. So then they're setting up their present study. This is where you'll see method. So then they say, oh, I'm sorry, the method's down here. So here they're going through the research questions, all right? And then they're showing how they obtained their participants. So when you consider how they're finding the participants, this is pertaining to Chapter 7, how they're obtaining their research participants. It's a very, very complex process of, how you get a representative sample. And then they describe the questionnaire, what they're putting on the questionnaires. Oh, and this looks like they did some in-depth interviews as well. So let me also go through some of the research articles that I'm going through. All right. So this is about narcissism and self-esteem on Facebook. Imagine that. So as you can see in this article, they're looking, the theory is, there's really not necessarily theory, but they're really studying this, I don't want to say a theory of narcissism, but that's really setting up the framework of the study there. As you can see, you have your hypotheses right here, all right? Individuals with high narcissism scores will be correlated with a greater amount of Facebook activity. Now, here is your independent variable, individuals with high narcissism scores. Basically, they're just looking at individuals. They're looking at narcissism. That is really your independent variable. And Facebook activity is your dependent variable. So you can see right here they have greater. So that indicates they're looking for, it's a directional variable. They're anticipating a direction. This says correlation. Correlation, they're looking for relationships. They're looking for a relationship between narcissism and Facebook activity. Okay? I can't wait to read this article. Self-promoting content. Here, that's your dependent variable. So this is, again, studying narcissism. It was looking at levels of narcissism and self-promoting content on Facebook. Okay? So I don't want to run out of time here. So these hypotheses are very simple how they're written. Typically communication communication articles are a little bit more easy to read because, hey, we're communication people. And then they tell you how they're using the Rosenberg self-esteem scale to measure self-esteem. They're using a narcissism personality inventory to study narcissism, to measure narcissism. All right, and then my guess is in here it's going to say how they measured the Facebook activity. Indicate the number of times they check their Facebook page per day and time spent on Facebook. Okay, so that's something that's really important to consider. All right, so all of these things that we're going to be doing the next couple weeks are going to be guiding you into the quantitative research process and also help with the qualitative research process, which is, again, is a little bit more open. All right, so I look forward to hearing from you on the discussion. Make sure that you're being scholarly in your discussion questions, your responses using the stuff from the textbook. If there's any questions, don't hesitate to drop me a line.